Hello, administrative, athletics, and PE class colleagues. Welcome to this video. I'm here with Joe Alstat, who is the high school athletic director for Greenville High School in Greenville, Illinois. Joe, how many years have you been in this position?
This is my 15th year.
So Joe brings a lot of experience to an area that many of you are thinking about for your career. Now, Joe also has coached. He's also been at the collegiate level, and he has also taught. So Joe has a variety of experiences, but for a solid decade and a half here, he served very faithfully and very well for Greenville High School athletics. The question that we're facing here to Joe, or Joe, that I want you to address the students here is, if you had to tell the students the most important trait you feel like they would need to have to be a high school athletic director, what would that be? Can you talk about that for a bit?
Sure. I think as a high school AD, two main things: you need to have organizational skills and you need to have communication skills. That's the two big ones for me. There are so many things to organize, it's easy to get lost in the shuffle. You know, you're organizing your games, you're organizing your start times, you're organizing your bus times, your officials, your game workers. Are you eating after the game? Do you have to do anything with that? I mean, there's all kinds of things that people really don't even think about until something goes wrong. You know, an official doesn't show up, or the bus doesn't show up, or it's late, or whatever, that go into it. So you have to have all that organized and planned, and you better confirm with your officials and your workers and your ticket takers and your bench personnel and all this, your trainer, your administrators that are helping you with the game management and supervision. But there's a lot that goes into it. It's not just, we got a game at 6, I'll see you there. And there's a lot more than that goes into it. But on the other flip side of that coin is the communication, because there's always changes. There's always changes, especially when you're dealing with outdoor sports, because you'll have weather delays or cancellations, or, the other team had something come up and they need to move the game time back a half an hour. So now you have to let your umpires know, your coach know, your media know, put it on social media for your fans. You got to make a phone call home to all the parents. There's a lot that goes into that. So the organization and the communication kind of tie together with everything, because you can be as organized as you want, but if you don't communicate to your people, they don't know, and you're the only one that does know. So those are my two big ones. When I'm dealing with a game or a game change, a phone call comes in and they have to change something, I have to stop what I'm doing. I have to put it all on the side, because the game is what matters, and ultimately that's what the kids are caring about. They care about their game. So I have to stop what I'm doing and make sure I have that updated in our schedule, tell all the people first, and then I'll go back to what I was doing originally. But I have to stop what I'm doing, because the game, the schedules have priority over anything else I'm doing in the office that day.
By the way, Joe's referring to a Covey principle that you're reading in your book called the quadrant theory. And he's talking about sometimes you're working on quadrant 2 stuff, which is where you want to be, but you will have emergencies and urgent matters, and that's quadrant 1. And in his case, what he's saying is, I may be having scheduled 3 conference calls because of my fundraising project that I have going on. And, the new facility that he's raising money for isn't going to be built by Friday. So those calls can be placed a little bit on the side, but in 2 to 3 hours, there's a bunch of people impacted by a game. Right. And that's called quadrant 1. And you'll read about that in your Covey textbook. Joe, one question I want to ask you is, when you talk about organization, what do you do personally to keep yourself organized?
It's interesting, Doug, because what I'm doing now is not what I was doing in year 1.
Okay.
It's not what I was doing in year 5 or even year 10. I have gradually through the years always evolved into trying to be more efficient and better at what I do. Yep. In an effort to save time and just be better and just do better. So, as an AD, as a coach or anything, I think you're always trying to steal things from other people. What works for you, I may be able to use that and make myself better. So My brother-in-law is Dusty Roth, who you know. He's the athletic director at Eureka Junior High School in Eureka, Illinois. And he's a guy I talk to a lot, and we bounce ideas off each other, and I've stolen several of his ideas and make them better. You asked for an example, and I'll give you an example. When my year one was 2007, and way back then, all athletic directors were doing their contracts paper and pencil and pen, and I would mail you a contract for a game, for an opposing team or an official. You'd mail it, they'd sign it, mail it back. And to me, that was kind of a waste of time, because not only that, it's a waste of postage, but also I've got to keep track of who hasn't sent me theirs back yet, and all this is just a mess. So I was one of the first, if not the first, athletic director in our area to utilize email contracts. And it's nothing, not an official contract, it's nothing with a stamp or a signature that I need, it's just a simple email. Coach, our corresponding date for next year is January 10th. It'll be at your place. Do you confirm? They reply back, yes, that's all I need for a contract. That's all I need. So I do that with officials. So in my email, I have different folders. Folder for each year, and then inside that folder, I have a folder for each sport. And every contract I get for officials, I stick it in the officials folder, and the other one for the opponents, I stick it in the opponents folder by year, by sport. And that way, if there's ever any confusion down the road, hey, I don't have that down. I can say, well, it looked like on September 10th of 2018, we had this email, and I'll forward it to you. Here's where I'm getting this from. And it gives you just a great paper trail. But that's one way that I have just evolved. But also through scheduling programs, there are different scheduling programs that different ADs use. I used a program called 8 to 18 for many, many years. But after talking with Dusty Roth, he used Google Sheets, which is just a spreadsheet. And he kind of showed me how he did it. And it really seemed a lot easier, and it was free. That we were paying $1,000 a year for this 8 to 18. So a couple of years ago, when we had the pandemic and we had no games, I used my time to take all our schedules, put them on Google Sheets, and it's much easier for our website and our people. I can email them out so much quicker. It's just been really good for more efficiency in my job and be able to communicate with other people better. So those are a couple examples of things that have evolved. But like any good coach, you're going to evolve what you're doing and try to make yourself better and talk to people who know more. And I'm no different as an athletic director or as a teacher or whatever your career path is going to be. I think the goal is to always try to be better and to improve. And I've tried to do that for sure.
So Joe's just given you one example of how to organize contracts for games that will be played. And so that's just one little area of giving you an example of how to organize one small area of what a high school athletic director may do. Joe, I know you don't have necessarily what I would call a typical day, but let's do the best job we can to say, in a typical day, you'll arrive at what time, and what does your day typically look like? Do you have a frame of reference in how you would like to spend your days?
Sure. So typically I will arrive about 7:45 a.m. I have gym duty in the morning, so I'm in the gym until about 8:15. While I'm in the gym, which I'm supposed to be supervising freshmen and sophomores as they come into the building and sit on the bleachers, I always bring something down to the gym to do. So right now I bring down 4 or 5 thank you cards every day, and I'm writing thank you cards as I'm in the gym just to try to use my time as best I can, because there's usually zero issues with those kids sitting in the gym. So I'm in there, and I'm writing thank you cards or whatever I need to do that day, just as something I can do while I'm doing the supervision. So after that, the bell rings. I teach driver's ed. I'm behind the wheel, first hour, second hour, third hour. So I am a teacher until about 11 o'clock a.m. So for the first 3 hours of the school day. After that, my day is pretty open. So I can take my lunch whenever I want. I can be AD whenever I want. I can schedule meetings throughout the day, however I want to. How I prioritize things, though, is after I teach, the first thing I do after I teach is I try to say what needs done for today or tonight's game. I need to get the names of our officials so checks can be written. So I try to do that, even if I can do that between classes, between first and second hour. It only takes a couple minutes. That allows our lady that does the checks time to get that done. If I wait till 2 o'clock, that's not fair to her. So I try to do that right away. What else do I need to do for tonight's game? For instance, we have a home basketball game tonight, boys basketball. Triple header, freshman, JV, varsity. I need to fill a cooler with water and ice, bottled water and ice for the officials. So I'll do that. I'll have students actually help me and do that. But just things to get ready. I got to get ready our laptop for the scoreboard or the scores table. I need to get that ready. Just get my rosters, make sure I got them all printed. Little things like that. Just double checking what hopefully I've already done. Just make sure it's all ready to roll. After that, usually I try to take my lunch early. This is just a me thing. It's not because I'm hungry. It's because I don't want to have an hour and then go home for a half an hour and come back. I want to have a huge block of time to work. That's what I want to do. So I take my lunch early and get back. And sometimes I'm back at 11:30 from lunch. And now I've got 4 solid hours of whatever comes about. I can tackle it. So I like having a huge block of time rather than breaking it up with a lunch or whatever. Sometimes I just eat in my office and eat at my desk. And that's great too. So a typical day though, I don't know how many emails I get a day. I don't count them, but there's a lot of people that ask you questions or have a need or something to discuss. But I look ahead the next week at the rest of the week. Do I have everything ready for the rest of the week? All right, now I'm going to move on to this. What's the next project I have going on? As you mentioned earlier, we've got a really massive fundraising campaign going on right now to try to really improve our facilities immensely. So I've been spending a lot of my time the last 9 months since that's become public dealing with that. And talking to potential donors and updating people and updating our school board and our superintendent, talking to contractors about turfing bids, lighting bids, all kinds of things like that. So, I've really, to be honest with you, I've been as busy this past year as I've ever been because of the things I've decided to partake in. It's been my choice. And, just like any other job, a lot of ADs are happy to do the minimum or coaches are doing the minimum, but I've never been that type of person. I'm not wired that way. So I'm always trying to look for something to make our facilities better, make our kids' experience better, things like that. So,
Joe, were you pushed by anybody to do this fundraising project? How did it come to surface? Okay, this is the time, and this is what we need to do.
It's funny you asked that because I've been the one doing the pushing on that, and to be honest with you, I've been pushing for 5 to 6 to 7 years about trying to make some big upgrades and things like that. To be honest with you, once the pandemic started and we had to pause all our sports, you see kids hurting and not getting the experience that I've seen kids have for the past 10, 15 years. That's when the push from me became a shove, to be honest with you. And
within yourself?
Within myself, but also to our superintendent. And I went to him and I said, hey, listen, we have got to give this a go. We got to get kids excited about something again and want to be playing here and give them every reason to be on the field, and they're not going to be off the field because it's too wet or it's too dark or we don't have any gym space for you or whatever. We want to encourage them. Once we get back to normal, we're going to be back and better than ever. That was kind of my sell to our superintendent and our school board. With a really, massive facility upgrade, and for multiple sports all over, indoor and outdoor. And part of that, I myself said, hey, I think we can fundraise. I think I can fundraise $1 million for this project and to help offset any costs that we would have. Other towns have done it, and I've met with other ADs, probably 4, 5, 6 ADs from around an hour radius of here that have done something similar to pick their brain and to find things out and what worked and what didn't. So that's kind of how it all came about. Once the pandemic started, I was kind of adamant, like, we have to get this going. We got to get something done. So, really the past 9 months only is when it's really become public, but there was a lot more before that behind the scenes that nobody knows about. So,
but basically nobody above you came and said, let's do this.
No.
Coaches always want new facilities, but there wasn't a tremendous pressure from coaches to do something new. This came from you. You said, okay, this is something we have to do from our athletic departments. From your point of view, we needed to do this.
Well, in my office, I have a marker board that sits behind my desk. And on that marker board, I have written on there many pie in the sky type of things. Things that kind of are written in code, so only I know what it means. People can't walk in and say, "You want to do what?" And laugh at you. But that just gives me something to look at every day. Like it's not my vision, but I think it's our vision, right? If we want to do the best thing for our kids, we need to have turf facilities. We need to have lights on all our outdoor fields. We need to have a second gymnasium. We'd love to have tennis courts on our own campus. That way our kids can play anytime they want and be out there and just walk out the back door. So all those things are, pie in the sky, not cheap projects, but those are things that I think we need to try to do if we can. So those, and they're constant reminders for me. So in my discussions with our superintendent, we've always have talked about turfing the football field. That's been a big, it's very common for a lot of high schools in our area to have that project done. And he's definitely on board with that. He's a sports guy. But, I thought, if we're going to do that, we could do a whole lot more and have one big fundraising campaign and tell people this is what we're going to do. And people are more likely to give, I think, more money if they see it's going to be a broader range of projects that are going to impact more kids, more people, more opportunities in the community. So that was really my sell to everyone. And, really things have really gone well with that.
Joe, as we're sitting here talking with the student or the students from the class, oftentimes a student perspective is participation, right? I'm actually performing the sport. You're a coach, you're a teacher, you're an AD, but you spend an awful lot of your time doing what I would call administrative work. How much administration goes into coaching?
It's probably the part I was not aware of. You see your coach show up early and leave late, but you don't know what they do when they're not in the gym or not at the field, because my sport in particular is baseball. I played baseball here at Greenville University. I helped coach with Lynn Carlson while I was doing my student teaching, so I got a little bit of that from when I coached with him that year, because there is the recruiting aspect with college that we don't have in high school. But just behind the scenes stuff, when you're talking about not only ordering the equipment, but passing out the equipment and collecting the equipment at the end of the year, and just making sure equipment goes from point A to point B if you're moving around your indoor facility to outdoor, the field, to our bus, to our trip, things like that, to dealing with the media, to making sure the programs are printed and your advertising and signs at the outfield fence, and we need to fix this in the dugout and make sure we're live streaming in the press box, and all these little things that as a player they just happened. When I was a player, things like that just happened, or we weren't doing half the things that are being done now. So the job has really changed even in my 15 years. Or who's going to run the social media account during the game today? All those types of things that when I played it wasn't even a thought, but now it's an expectation, and it's a great thing. But it's all those behind the scenes things, and where are we eating after the game? Do we have the check? Do we have all those things? A coach has to think of all of those things, not just how you're going to defend number 32 on the other team. You have to think about everything, because as a coach you're responsible for it all. And you can pass that on to your assistants, but ultimately the buck stops with you. And if they're not getting it done, that's a reflection of you as well. So there's just a whole lot more that encompasses with coaching and teaching and, being an athletic director that you don't know until you are in that role, and you don't know what you don't know until you're there,
So I think what AD Alstat is trying to help us with here is giving us a look at practical day-to-day administrative work for a high school athletic director. And just in this short conversation, you've heard about contracts, you've heard about a schedule of the day. Most high school ADs teach in some form. I want you to hear that. That's what we talk to you about when you're preparing, that just the full-time AD at a high school, while they exist, they're a little bit limited. Most of us work jobs where we carry a couple of different hats. You've heard about a major campaign. This will take Joe somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 to 10 years to be able to pull off everything that he's wanting to pull off. Now, I want him to share, I'm going to ask him to share one kind of small practical idea in fundraising that I've never seen before that I thought was just fantastic. Can you tell a class how you set up these kind of videos? And did they come to it? I think they came to us via Facebook. And you got them with very famous people. Can you name some of the people and what you did to make that happen, how that idea came about? Because I want you potentially, when you head into your job, to be able to use this idea. This is practical.
Well, yeah, it's really created a buzz, and it's been a great thing. So the idea came about, you might know St. Louis Cardinal infielder Matt Carpenter. Well, his dad is Rick Carpenter. Rick is a high school baseball coach in Texas, and Rick is a Hall of Fame baseball coach. He's not just some coach. He's a Hall of Fame baseball coach in Texas. I've been to his facility before. He had a turf field. So the original idea came from me calling Rick and saying, Rick, I want to turf our baseball field. Would you mind making a video just explaining to our people why it would be a good idea to have a turf baseball field and the benefits that come with that? And if Matt wouldn't mind, if you would mind having Matt film one, that would be really awesome, really cool, and I think it would help sell our people on it. It started with that, and honestly, 2 days later, Rick texted me 2 videos, one from him and one from Matt, and I thought, wow, that's awesome. Like that could really make an impact on people. So again, this is during the pandemic when we don't have any sports at night. So I reached out to 80 to 100 different athletic sports-minded celebrities, if you will, national and local, to try to get a 30-second message from them about this is a great thing for kids. You should support this with your community. You'll never regret it, things like that. Just they can make their own message. I kind of laid it out. Here's what we're trying to do. We're trying to raise $1 million, which now we're at 1.5 million now. We've eclipsed that, but at the time I thought $1 million was going to be really hard to do. So I wrote a letter to Dick Vitale and dug up all kinds of addresses on the internet or email addresses, and not knowing if they're correct or not. You're just taking a stab in the dark, really. But I emailed or mailed out stuff to Dick Vitale and Bob Costas and Lou Holtz and all kinds of different people. Mark Cuban, the owner of the Mavericks, and all those people responded with a video. What people don't know are the people that didn't respond. I didn't get a yes from everybody. Like I said, I sent out 80 to 100 for big name people and probably got 20 to 25 of them back. So about 20%, 25% or so. But, I sent out a whole lot more that didn't get returned or, things like that. But that's part of the deal. I was happy to get any of them. But, when your phone rings and it's an unknown number and you answer and it's Bob Costas on the line, that's pretty cool. That's pretty neat. So those people, in all, I probably have 45 videos. There were some St. Louis media people, a couple different athletes, local, some of our former Comet coaches that have moved away, or Greenville people that made a video. They were all just a little bit unique, and I released them on social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, one every day, like starting in September, like right around Labor Day. I started just one every day. And I started with a couple big ones to try to get some attention, and you just try to scatter them out throughout. As I'm sitting there thinking, we had a video from Jay Billis, college basketball analyst, Mike Schilt, the former manager with the St. Louis Cardinals. There was Clint Hurdle, former manager with the Pirates. There was some major players and major names that volunteered to do this. So I was really humbled and honored to have that, but it was also a big thing for our campaign, for our people to say, man, they're talking about the Comets. That's pretty cool. That creates a buzz, and your alumni and people, hey, they share that. Hey, look at this one. Look at that. Look at that. And, everywhere I'd go, they'd ask, how'd you get such and such? How'd you get, and it was great because it brought some attention to what we're trying to do, which was the ultimate goal, right?
Well, a real practical idea. You can contact Joe. He is the high school athletic director at Greenville High School in Greenville, Illinois. and he will respond to you. And he'd be happy to speak with you about any of your questions that you might have regarding what it takes to be a high school athletic director. Joe, thanks for coming.
I'll give you one more
Yeah.
piece of information if you don't mind. So, we've talked about a lot of the things that I've done here to really change things, but what I want to emphasize with your students is that didn't happen right away. Right away, when you first get your job, whether you're as a coach or an AD, I didn't want to come right into the living room and rearrange the furniture. I don't think that's a very wise move. And I was actually going to a district where I knew a little bit about the people and what we had or didn't have. Especially if you're going to a school district you don't know much about, take some time to analyze. Don't go in there right away with all these plans and things like that, and then implement them right away. See what you have. Get to know your coaches. Get to know your administrators. Get to know your community. Get to know your facilities. And then make a priority list of things you want to get done, and then go tackle them. And get to know some key members of your community that could be major players if you would ever need money for something or a fundraising effort, or we would like to have help with getting this in our gym, a new scoreboard in our gym. The banks or lawyers or whoever in town that might be interested in advertising, things like that. So you can have all the best plans, and you go to a district and maybe that's not what they need or what they want. So you have to really take a pulse of your area and your community. The things that we need in Greenville is probably different than what they need in Edwardsville, for instance. So we all have different needs. So don't step right in and go rearrange the furniture. Take a look and see what you got, what you need, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, and then try to make those better.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you. Hope that went all right.
Great.